All right, so today we had a emergency call out from one of our local homesteading farm friends of ours that we've had. We've known them for probably about 4 years now. So they have cows and we had cows, keyword had. And he called up because they had a cow that was down, and a cow that's down is called ground beef. So
hopefully not. Hopefully you can intervene and they don't become ground beef.
Correct.
So anyway, he called you.
Right. Because he was suspecting that she had gotten bloat. So we just got a call from one of our farm friends, and he's got a cow that is down, and I believe it has bloat. He tried getting hold of the emergency vet, and the emergency vet is not getting back to them. We had to do this procedure before with one of our cows when we had them, and they get bloat and they have to get relieved, otherwise they will basically suffocate to death. So we are on our way down there to hopefully help out and see if we can't remedy this problem with the cow. From my understanding and all the research we've done, the long story on that is that during, especially in the Midwest areas where we have frost and snow and all that type of stuff, if the certain pasture grasses, legumes, stuff that's high in protein goes through a frost cycle, and then the animals get out there and it's still kind of wet, they eat a lot of it and it goes into their rumen and it over ferments, and it causes them to have a lot of gas that they can't release like other species on this earth can release.
And it can happen with grain too. It just really depends. Sometimes it happens with too much grain as well.
Correct.
So really,
we've experienced it though because we do pasture-based animals.
Yes.
We've experienced it once. We'll talk about that later.
That was
an interesting thing.
That was a hard day.
So the long story short on that is we kind of dropped what we were doing.
And Josh is like, "Who's coming with me?" And Marie's like, "I'll come."
Yeah.
And so Marie, you don't need little kids with you in those circumstances because you can't. It's usually all hands on deck. Usually people helping.
Yeah.
But it did help probably that we have had an experience with bloat before going into this, because it was, instead of wasting time trying to figure out all the
different steps,
things that you could do before taking the big step, and we'll get to that in a minute. You just went straight for the big step.
Right. Well, and you realize how far along they are, and then you can see from just how the situation can turn back.
We'll put a picture up right now of the cow, what our farm friend sent to Josh to show you what we saw going into it.
Right.
Do you want me to tell the story of our experience and then kind of
Sure. Because that was kind of started with you anyhow.
It did. We purchased 3 Guernsey dairy cows several years ago now, and they were all bred. I'm just giving you guys some history in case you have not seen or heard this story yet. It was kind of my dream for a long time to have a dairy cow, and I still really love, I'm just going to say it out loud, I still really love and miss dairy cows, and I'm not saying it's never going to happen again, but it just was something we had to lay down. But anyway, we had purchased 3 dairy cows. They were all bred. They all successfully calved here. Mm-hmm. I got to pull one of the calves. We have a video on that. Maggie, I was able to pull her calf, which is kind of cool, up in the barn. Let me get to the point. We had 3 dairy cows. They had all, calved and stuff like that. And one of the dairy cows, Poppy, I was milking at this time, I think just once a day.
Probably.
Once a day, and that's what we tried to do all the time, except for right after they had their calf, and you wanted to make sure they didn't have an infection or anything, or get mastitis, so you would milk twice a day. So anyway, I was milking once a day. I went outside to check on things, and
towards the evening,
it was dark. It was totally dark already, and it was it was in the fall, right after our first or second frost.
Right.
Of the year.
And we had freshly planted the field the year before that with
alfalfa.
A grazing mixture up in the front, and then heavier alfalfa in the back.
So I go outside, Poppy's standing up here, right where I would milk them, where I would call them to milk them, and right at the gate, and she was up there mooing, and that was very unusual. I mean, they can be more vocal, when they're in heat or something like that, but that was not what was happening. And she came up here and she was mooing, and I was like, that's really weird. And I went and got Josh, and I said, I'm gonna milk Poppy out because she's mooing a lot up here. And I'm like, I don't know what her deal is, but I'm gonna bring her into the stanchion. and milker. And
I was actually taking a nap because I had a late night at work, and one of the kids came in and got me, and you had already gotten her into the stanchion.
I had brought her into the stanchion to milk her, and I looked at her, and it's almost like I could see her getting larger, like in front of my eyes. Mm-hmm. She was
filling out the stanchion.
She was filling up the stanchion, which was very unusual for a dairy cow in milk. You guys know they're ribby, they're healthy, but they're ribby, they're skinny because they're milking, they're burning calories. So, and we did grass fed here. They didn't get all the stuff from the grain. So anyway, so she's in the stanchion, and I'm looking at her and realized that I need help. So I sent one of the kids to get Josh from sleeping. Mm-hmm. He came out by that time. She looked like she had, it was going quick. She was on her feet.
It was affecting her respiratory. Her eyes were starting to get like that, I don't want to say bulgy, but they were.
Yeah, she looked.
Animal distress.
Yeah, she had distressed breathing.
Yeah.
She looked like she had like a 50-gallon drum.
Yeah.
Like sticking out both sides. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. I know any of you who have experienced bloat, you know what I'm talking about when it's severe. But she was still on her feet at this point. So we're like, okay, we literally were seeing it happen. And had she not come up to the front of the barn to tell me whatever, she was communicating that she was in trouble. And had she not done that, we probably would have found her the next morning because it was going quick, very quick.
And it can,
it can kill them.
It can kill them within about 15, 20 minutes. It doesn't take long sometimes.
Like, it's no joke. You can't mess around with bloat. Sometimes it starts a little slow, maybe if something's getting irritated and you can catch it, but this was not that case. She was literally touching the sides of the stanchion by this point. Like, she was just getting huge. So Josh was like, well, let's try to put a tube...
Yeah. Put a tube down her throat, into the rumen, and like release the gas, or
baking soda.
You can do a baking soda, like warm water mixture to take care of the frothy bloat. There's a couple different types of bloat. There's frothy bloat, and we're not veterinarians. By the way, all this stuff that we're talking about, we're homesteaders. We're not veterinarians. We have some
We're not giving you permission to do this. This was one of those situations.
Yeah.
I know we have friends like in Texas. We have friends in New York. We have homesteader friends throughout the country, and in some places you have excellent vet care. Like, in Michigan, you guys have Dr. Pohl there, who's willing to come out, not all of Michigan, I forget where he's at, region, but in his region, he's willing to come out and work on large animals and to do these emergency vet visits. It's not everywhere. And sometimes you just have to do what it takes to save the animal's life. And in this case, Josh is like super willing to try stuff. He's not scared to jump in and make it happen. And we figured in this scenario with our cow, there was no time for a vet to get there. No. And we also knew we were under the gun. She was going down hard. So there was no time for a vet to get there. And there was also, she was dying.
Well, and to that statement is, like, I've always had the thought process is we can do nothing and literally watch her die in front of us, or any animal, or we can give it our best educated guess, and make an intervention and know that it might not be pretty, it might not work, but if you do nothing, you're going to lose. First of all, you're going to lose a $2,000, $2,500 investment. But financially aside, you're gonna lose that animal that you've put the time and energy into as well.
And she was a great dairy cow. She was our best as far as like, not that you ever want to lose an animal, but you guys know it's always like the good ones that like have something happen to them. And she was one of my good ones. And it was interesting because all three of the dairy cows were out grazing at the same time, but for some reason it affected Poppy. It affected her. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we tried, so at this point, as I'm standing on top of the stanchion holding the tube while liquid and baking soda, I realized this is going to be messy. This is weird. Yeah. We're putting all hands on deck here. We even, this wasn't at this point, but anyway, that did not work.
Yeah, she ended up going down.
She went down.
Yeah.
And so it's all happening in front of our eyes. We're there looking at it. Yeah. And this is where Josh was like, okay, basic anatomy of a cow. Where's the rumen? Yeah. How do I get in there? We did not have
a couple of key pieces
of equipment, which in hindsight, I think this is how you learn these things.
Right.
We did not have, so we were doing the best that we could at the time.
Right.
So Josh, you want to say what you did next, since it was more you?
Yeah, I took a really sharp pocket knife and located on the left side of her anatomy where the rumen is, and we made a fairly large hole. I started off with a small one.
Started small.
And she had so much product in there, pasture grass.
That alfalfa.
And then with the amount of pressure, it wasn't just a lot of these cases you'll see where they put it in and you just hear the air escaping and it works fine. Well, it wasn't working, and it wasn't producing the result that we needed, and so it got to the point of where we actually put a big enough hole in her side to where I could get my hand in. This is where it gets fun.
This was bad,
we literally took out, I removed a 5-gallon pail full of the pasture grasses.
Green matter.
Because it's literally, they eat that grass, it goes into the rumen, and it starts to go through that fermentation process for them to regurgitate it, eat their cud, chew on their cud, and then go through the full digestion. So it's the rumen. So
and at this point, she's down on the ground, and you can hear her labor to breathe.
Yeah.
Like
she's possibly taking like her last breaths.
Yeah, she's barely breathing,
Yeah.
sometimes not breathing. I was under her head, and you guys know how much. Okay, first of all, if you've ever smelled a rumen, you know what we went through.
Yeah.
Second of all, I mean, I had William, my son, like almost throwing up. He turned pale as can be, and I had to send him out of the room. But at the same time, we needed all hands on deck because we were trying to put her upright-ish, at least sitting up, because she could not breathe. It was crushing her innards.
So once we got the product out of there, and once we got that air released, I mean, we did finally hear the rush of air that we were looking for, and then the rapid reduction of the 55-gallon drums on her side reduce. And it, like I said, it was a very vivid experience. And then anyway, so this is another rookie mistake, because she was on concrete. And
she was on the wood stanchion.
But then she was in the concrete side of our building.
Right. At that time, we had the stanchion in the big pole barn. This was before we had a farm shop.
Yeah. We
had it in the pole barn just because of space. We thought it would be good for space. But at this point, she had gone down in the stanchion. We literally had grandma. We had all the kids.
Yeah.
I mean, this was a family, all hands on deck. So we all pulled Poppy off the stanchion. She's on concrete now, and like nice concrete, not like rough with texture. She was and obviously when Josh is pulling all that out, there was some blood. There was rumen.
Not much.
Well, just
it was
because
more
of
the
the
fluid
cut.
from the rumen. Yeah.
The fluid that was in there, the rumen, and obviously this incredible stress to the body of this cow.
And now she's on an ice skating floor.
She can't get up. She can't get up. You guys.
Yeah.
I went. Okay, so.
So then we had to shackle her legs.
We shackled her.
We pulled her out to the gravel driveway.
Yeah. So we had to pull her out.
Yeah.
It looks like a complete murder scene everywhere, because now there's like a drag mark. Like, it was awful. We all smell like rumen. It was just so gross, you guys. But anyway, and we had also put out a call to some friends who couldn't get some farm helpers.
Other farm friends.
People locally.
Much like our friend did this time around,
Yes.
which is totally
Which is
acceptable
what
and
you do.
expected.
But we called who was
Yeah.
close, because we needed muscle. We're like, can you come with your sons and help us? Because,
And they did get there once we got her out to the gravel.
We drug her out to the gravel. They showed up. We were, at this point, again, she was still struggling. She was, that was so traumatic.
Body,
yeah, she, we were able to hoist her upward and get her up off the ground. And then she just walked to the barn.
Very non-traumatically just walked off and started drinking water and being fine again. Yeah.
My face,
a little bit
my
big.
face. No, it was a big hole.
All right.
Okay, that's no joke.
Yeah.
Normally you don't have to do that. The hole, in order to save this cow's life, was this big in her side. Josh calls up, and I'm like, we'll fast forward this part, but so she's okay. Miraculously, she's okay. And, so then, she even kept producing milk, but...
Yeah, and we can fast forward some of it, but long story short is she ended up making a full recovery. This wound
that's what I wanted to talk about, the wound.
Slowly closed up and healed over time, and it leaked,
Well, I'm going to tell you, I want you to know this, because I didn't believe it. Right. Josh called up an old-time farm, dairy farmer. Maybe it was beef. I can't remember.
No, he was an old-time dairy farmer.
And he's like, because we had tried to suture it shut. We had someone come and suture it shut, and it blew. Like
it didn't hold.
It did not hold. Okay. It's just
and
too
literally
much.
He's like, just let it heal. And I'm like,
and
excuse me?
the old timer says, that'll just heal up. And Josh's like, well, the hole's like this big. And the guy's like, don't worry. It'll take time, but it'll heal up. And that man was right. And it healed up fine. And she was 100% fine.
She went into the winter. In that winter, she steamed like a choo-choo train.
I'm not kidding. Like, okay, so you know how the gas is, like, as they're eating, it creates that gas.
Warm,
And it was so gross, you guys. I milked the cow, so I would go out there and I would be milking, and suddenly she'd be eating, her chaff hay or whatever, and you would see and smell all that's coming out of her side. It would go,
Graphic,
I'm telling you, this stuff happens. These are things they don't tell you in Homesteaders 101, that your cow could almost die, and then you have to deal with the consequences of it. Anyway, all of that to say that this experience taught us so much. Now we know you can't release the cows to the back alfalfa pasture during the first frost or the second frost.
But now lo and behold, it's not just alfalfa we've figured out.
No,
there's clover, there's other legumes, there's other high protein greenery.
Yeah, because I know some of the people that I follow, they've had cows bloat over things that they find in the field, and then they die, scrap stuff. Like if you
there's
big
people who've had
and grain too.
Small herds, all of them die. Like they didn't catch them in time.
That's usually because of
sad.
Like the alfalfa thing, like we experienced. Yep. Somehow we only had Poppy she must have liked her treat of her alfalfa because she ate way too much of it.
She went for all the Snickers out there. So anyway, that's the story of the graphic story of the.
It was graphic. Yeah. It was awful.
It was.
But it was.
You have to
the
old military saying you have to adapt and overcome. Improvise, adapt, and overcome, and you have to make decisions that sometimes you go, okay, we're gonna do this.
She's either gonna die or we're gonna step in and save her because there was no time. We've had vets come out. We believe in that. We think that's fine.
They're just hard to come by. Yeah.
Large animal vets are hard to come by, and that's something that you need, at least where we live, you need to consider that when you're looking where you want to be a homesteader at, because you have to realize you might be doing these things on your own.
So we've acquired things over the year. We've acquired some antibiotics for the large animals.
Yep.
We don't like to use them just every day, but they have to be used sometimes.
Because after all of this, we had to hit Poppy with antibiotics because
5 or 7 days.
After all of that work, I'm not about to let this thing die from an infection. So we actually even dried her up and stuff too after that for a little bit. It was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing how she healed up. And but let's talk about.
Okay, so a couple things that we learned is.
So antibiotics we keep on hand.
Yep. And we got a couple things and we keep them on hand anyhow because we do have ruminant animals still, ruminants. And the sheep, any goats, we have a goat. They can all deal with these things. So we had decided to acquire a couple things, and one of the things that we saw on Dr. Pull, I never had really thought that we would need it because we didn't really. You think it won't happen to you, right? So we acquired the trocar. It's a red, giant screw-looking thing. We'll bring it up closer in a second here.
Oh, I can do it. If you want me
and it's got you make a small incision, and I choose now to use a very sharp butcher type knife,
as opposed to a sharp pocket knife when you're in an emergency.
Yes, because it will make a clean entry cut, and it doesn't need to be very big because once you can get the point of this into it, you push it in, you get it into the rumen, and you screw it all the way down, and then you just simply remove the center of it, and it goes and lets out the air. So this is a trocar. We got them for I think cheap. I think we bought like 5 of them it must have been like Valley Vet or one of the large animal vets things. The trocar was the one thing that we did purchase and add to our kit, and then like I said, we just from experience. In this case, we grabbed the trocar and we grabbed the knife to take with us. And I just knew from experience between that and then about a 4-foot section of garden hose, we would be able to
we took
hopefully address whatever we ran into in this specific case. So
because of course you would prefer not to stick a hole in your animal.
Correct.
And so if you can, I know that we and of course things happen when you go out of town, but we had someone watching a lamb for us when your brother was watching a lamb for us when we were out of town one time, and we get a call and the lamb was beginning to bloat, and he was able to do the tube with the baking soda, and it worked fine.
Yes.
So if you're
that's usually from what they call that helps frothy bloat specifically.
That was different. Yep. And this was not, I mean, you could tell it was not well. You know, you begin to watch the signs like they're not eating, they're not drinking. In that case with this little lamb, saved its life, did the job perfect.
Okay. When
in this particular case with this cow, the cow was already down.
Right.
And it needed to have some more. You skipped all the other stuff and you went straight for.
We did try the hose really
Oh,
briefly.
did you?
Yeah,
See, I wasn't there.
We
I was
briefly
here with
tried the
kids.
hose. I had a strong inclination that it probably wouldn't work, and at the end of the day, you just have to, sometimes you have to take the other step. So we ended up doing that. We ended up trying the hose real quick. It didn't. We could tell it wasn't it wasn't even relieving any pressure off of the animal. And it was in deep. I was able to, pull the hose back out, smell the rumen on it, so we knew that we were in the rumen, and all these different indicators to where you're at with things. We ended up putting a hole in it. You heard the air escaping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it.
Oh my god.
I did have to, once again, we don't do this all the time, so I went in and made the first cut and I put the trocar in, and I could tell that it wasn't quite seating the right way, and the reason it wasn't seating right is because you have to go through the hide, and then
Which is really hard.
in my own
hard to get.
opinion, you have to get the knife in far enough to get through the rumen, and then you take and insert the trocar, because now you've gone through the cavity to where you want to be.
Smells like
Yeah, but I can feel her mass going down already.
Yeah.
I see it.
I think there was a quick clip in a video that we're showing where you put your hand along the spine and along the rib, and that kind of gives you the landmark on the left side of the cow of where you have to make the entry for the rumen.
How do you know where to do this?
Well, so they got you can feel her rib line right here, and then you can even hear,
yeah.
like right there.
Full.
So when I had to only do it one other time, but like right here is where I would aim for my own guess.
Okay.
I just follow that back rib and make sure I'm to the back of that rib there.
Sure. Yeah. So you're not
And
gonna
then
hit the rib.
and then put that knife like straight in just to
Okay.
make that purchase point.
Gotcha. Cool.
I think, like I said, technically I could have gone like I don't know. It's not bad. Like right here. Because if you feel there's the spine,
Yeah.
like that goes up in here,
Yeah.
and then there's here, and like that wallow right there.
Yeah.
We got an update this morning that the cow was up on all fours, was walking around still. Usually that first evening's kind of a big tell. So I was telling everyone on the way home, I was cautiously optimistic on how well she was gonna do, because she didn't bounce back as quick as our animal did.
Which
because
is amazing.
she had been down for a longer amount of
while.
time.
Yeah.
Honestly, she was. The farmer had found her after he had seen her that morning, but didn't know the exact time. Like Annie was able to watch our animal live time.
She went down
what happened
in front of us.
This was a different case where she may have been down struggling for a little bit longer than we even knew. Her nose was really cold to the touch, and so there was some indicators that she was going to take a little bit longer to get back around. So, but last we found out, she's eating feed. She's still taking care of her baby because she's milking a baby. She's got a baby on.
It'll be amazing. It'll be interesting to see if it affects her milk supply or not.
Yeah,
If
I don't
wasn't
think
as-
it will, because it's
wasn't
a
as
much
stressful.
smaller hole.
Our poor sweet
This
cow.
is the size of
went
my
through-
thumb.
Our poor sweet cow. We put her through the ringer
right.
that I felt like she had earned the right
Yeah.
to be dried up and not have to produce milk for us anymore.
So I was there talking with, another thing to throw on real quick is I was there talking with our friend, and you know, this is what homesteading is all about. The character of homesteading, the heart of homesteading is that we all know when, like, I need a project done and we just need some extra help, and, you know, yeah, we'll get some people here, or we'll just muscle down and we'll get it done as a family ourselves. But then there's other time when you're just like, you know what, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm going to rely on my resources. I'm going to make a phone call to, you know, to a local friend or a homesteader. Develop the community around you. We keep on saying this. This is the biggest piece of advice I can give you, is take time to learn. Take time to have like that, I call it the index card of information in your head that you can draw from.
Because you can't prepare for everything.
No,
like, you can't do it all on your own. We actually don't even agree with that perspective.
Right.
So, like, you doing things as a team, and like, okay, I'm not happy that we had to go through that situation with Poppy the cow, but now we kind of know what to do. That's no guarantee that it's going to be okay, but if someone else is having an emergency, I mean, Josh dropped what he was doing, got in the car, and was there within a half an hour. And when a vet's not calling you back, what are you going to do? Right. You know, you have to do something. You have to
it was funny because he said his first call was to the vet, and it went to a voicemail. His second call was to us. And,
well, because he used to come here all the time as a customer back in the day. Right. So he knew the story of Poppy, and he knew that he saw the steam coming out of her side in the winter when he would come here. So anyway. So
as a positive outcome
for now, I hope she does okay. I really, really hope so. Yeah. I think nobody wants anyone to have to deal with drama on their homestead, but it does happen. Mm-hmm. You know, I was just watching Appalachia's homestead with Patera the other day, and she lost a goat. You know, these things just happen. Mm-hmm. Nobody's perfect, and
animals are just not really smart sometimes.
Sometimes they're just not smart. But in this case, I gotta give Poppy credit. When like I said, had she not come up and kind of complained and whined that she was not feeling good, I probably would have found her the next day already dead because of how quickly it was happening. So I was thankful for that. We're thankful when we are given the opportunity, just like we are thankful to happy and willing and thankful to be able to go help other people, just the same when people are willing to help us. And it sounds,
this is totally silly side note, but we're literally gone helping someone with a down cow, and I had arranged for another friend of ours, not in a homesteading world, just in a network
this is just life stuff,
that was coming to help me fix a dryer. You know, building the network around you is important, building the true relationships, and it was kind of the epitome of like how things I think should function. We were gone helping this guy for hours with this animal, and then here we are rushing back home to have someone that's going to help us on their own dime. You know, he doesn't ask for payments, or, you know, he gets coffee cakes from the girls once in a while, but
we bribe people with food. That's how we make friends.
It's that circle of relationship, and I go back to it again, is that we should not be self-sufficient. That we're not designed to be self-sufficient. That's not what the Lord even instructs, is that we are in a community of network of believers and of homesteaders and of like-minded people, and that these things are all spun together to where you rely on each other. And I'm not saying that we have to like have everyone come help us every day, because that's part of homesteading too.
Yeah, you also need to learn how to be, to take care of business.
After it,
But build your community and your group of people, and then be willing to help others as well.
Yes.
That's not a pat on the back. That's just how it works. Like, that feeling. I remember, I don't even think I had time to cry, but I remember being emotional during the issue with Poppy the cow. Mm-hmm. And I remember crying out to the Lord in my driveway, Lord, you gotta do something. Like, this is big deal time. This cow's dying. I need your help. I need you to intercede. And I won't forget that feeling. It was really intense. And so to hear when we got this message or this phone call that someone else needed that help, then there's no question. You just go and help, because you know what that feels like. And it's serious. And it's, all you do is you give it your best shot. So it's a community. You guys are part of our community. Love interacting with you and hearing what you have to say and hearing about your experiences, your stories, your memories of different things. Anyway, so we appreciate you all very much. And make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're new here. We are just sharing life with y'all. This is just something that happened super last minute yesterday. Yeah. And we just decided to sit down and talk about it, because this is real life homesteading. This is what comes up. Things come up, and we just want to share real life with you guys on what's going on. So hit that subscribe button, share us with your friends and family, and we will talk to y'all soon in the next video. Bye.
Bye.